Overcrowding leads to chronic problems of shortages of housing in Indian cities. Explain citing relevant examples. Citing CITIN, citing relevant examples. And this is a 15-mark question. Any case, kuch bhi mark ho, my instructions generally are do not write more than 2 pages. पर ऐसा क्वेश्चन नहीं जो आप बोलोगे आउट ऑफ सिलेबस है. Okay, I do not know. You can't do this. Very, very open, straight question. Overcrowding leads to chronic problems of shortages in housing in Indian cities. याद रहे that every answer you must somehow think of 3, 4, 5 dimensions. वो dimensions क्या होंगे अगर पता चल गया आपको, you can develop the answer more smoothly. Chronic problem shortages of houses in Indian cities. Okay, before I move on, you must write this in the India's examples. ठीक है? So while thinking, make sure that you are factoring that point in. और thinking कमी बेटा ऐसे thinking नहीं, always some jotting should go on. कुछ लिखना चाहिए आपको. Make it a habit. कुछ urbanization का data कुछ जानते हैं आप लोग? Give me 4, 5 data around urbanization. Exact ना भी हो, but broadly पता होना चाहिए. Like how much percentage is urban population in India? Approximately about 35%. ठीक है, 1/3. How many mega cities of India? Now 5. Bangalore. Okay. How many metropolitan centers of India? According to 2011 census, 53 metropolitan cities of India. Or any idea, ये mega cities में कितना population है? Even if you put 10 in each, approximately. So अगर चारों मिला देते हो, as a percentage कितना है? Now these 4, 5 mega cities, they have more than 1/3 of all the urban population. Know these numbers. They are more than 1/3 of all urban population. So कितना आपका lopsided है? So India में the mega cities and the metro cities have the bulk of India's population. ठीक है? The huge number that we have. सिर्फ 5 mega city में you have got more than 1/3 of the urban population. On average, each city on average about 8 to 12 million. Delhi will be more than 13, 14. It all depends on कितना boundary. तो ये data आपको पता होना चाहिए more or less. Okay. Any idea about urban poverty कितना है इंडिया में? Urban areas again about 1/3. More than 1/3 of India's poverty, not total poor population. 1/3 of India's poverty is in the urban areas, and again more in the larger metro cities. Or urban problems में, because of this, what are the 4, 5 important problems? What are the problems? Crowding is one problem. Now crowding से related issues of infrastructure, ठीक है? So slums हैं, quarters हैं, okay? Problems of amenities हैं, okay? Which is water, electricity, health issues, employment issues. You have a range there, ठीक है? And because of the crowding, you also have problems of pollution there. तो ये range of problems पता है आपको, more or less. अब देखो, the question बहुत focused है कि it is the chronic problem, okay, related to crowding, and somewhere implied होगा migration यहाँ पर. So you understand this? The urban area का growth rate जो है, it is not so much because of fertility rates. It's because of migrations. So migration is an important reason for overcrowding in the urban areas. और क्या reason है overcrowding का? Any can you link with something? Yes, migration है मतलब है there is a role of the rural areas not economically as wealthy. But और क्या reason हो सकता है crowding का urban areas में? हाँ, so important part is land use planning, urban sprawl, land use planning, lack of land use planning. ठीक है? So there is unauthorized expansion, unauthorized constructions. So all of that, leapfrogging, squatters. So crowding भी एक ऐसा चीज है urban areas में. It is not uniformly crowded. Okay, there are some pockets which have more crowding. So housing problem maybe you'll have the same type of a pattern. So which type of population has the maximum problem of housing issues? Slum populations, migrants, and they are basically low-skilled migrants. ये बताओ कि housing problem is not only about lack of houses, also an issue of affordability also, right? Affordability cost issues भी हैं, rental issues भी हैं, even that creates, ठीक है? So affordability problem होगा. अच्छा, इससे एक और aspect होगा linked to the problem of crowding or housing. Because of lack of transportation networks, there will be more congestion at the city centers, correct? Because if we had good networks, railway lines, good public transport, good bus services, okay, and the suburbs are well developed, so people can disperse out. Okay, why do people concentrate? Because they can't commute easily. So a problem of housing problems and crowding problems. So I'm trying to give it some kind of more expansive discussion. It's because of migration. It is related to lack of land use planning, urban sprawl, squatters, okay, leapfrogging. It's also because of lack of economic integration, lack of transportation networks that forces population to concentrate around the economic centers. ठीक है? और कहीं ना कहीं ये सारा गवर्नेंस इश्यूज हैं. गवर्नेंस, लैंड प्लानिंग इज गवर्नेंस, कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज गवर्नेंस, इवन रेंटल इश्यूज आर गवर्नेंस इश्यूज, राइट? कौन कितना रेंटल चार्ज कर रहा है, समटाइम्स इट इज मैनिपुलेटेड. तो यहाँ पर गवर्नेंस फैक्टर्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. एनवायरमेंटल क्या होगा? कॉन्सिक्वेंस होगा. ठीक है, कॉन्सिक्वेंस होगा. अच्छा, नाउ रिकंस्ट्रक्शन, उसमें दिक्कत है. हाँ, सो दैट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ योर लैंड यूज प्लानिंग एंड गवर्नेंस. यस, फाइन. अच्छा, एक और बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया है, रीजन है, अर्बन एरियाज में वी हैव गॉट अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग क्लास डिफरेंशिएशन, because of which you have seen, no, there are gated communities, okay, that creates problems of crowding also. There is deliberate social and economic exclusion because of economic and social factors. There is exclusion because of social and economic factors. एक ghettoism भी है, ये टर्म सुना है आपने? Okay, ghettoism, where slums, people of the low income class, they tend to concentrate. So ghettoism, the concept of gated communities. So आपके societies बनते हैं ना, they kind of fence off. So that also creates problems of crowding in the less governed areas. ये आपका बता दिया snapshots. Now think of कि इस topic में आप geography के क्या-क्या terms ला सकते हैं. Okay, so we have a list of, so I'm teaching you how to think on these questions. Malthusian ka positive checks, okay, crowding is one of them. Okay, fine. Optimum population quality of life, okay, fine. What else? Pull factors. Yes, okay, migration pull factors. एक बहुत specific term है Ravenstein law का. He had said this, because of migration, okay, housing problems are always, okay, a perpetual problem for the destination regions. I don't know if you remember this sentence or not. एक Ravenstein का law है that says, one of those statements is, because of migration, housing problem is a perpetual problem of the destination regions. And yes, Lee's model of push-pull, okay, so the pull factors, the moment I say land use patterns, what can you use? कोई concept, ये classic example है, the linking two topics, urbanization or settlement and population geography. बताओ क्या use कर सकते हो? Can you use a term called morphology of cities? So housing problem will also have a morphological pattern in the cities. याद आ रहा है CBD, transition zone याद आ रहा है? The zone 1. So maximum कहाँ होगा आपका housing problems? Around CBD and zone 1, low class dwellings. As you move outside, you will have less of housing problems. Housing problems also because of extensive land uses. So if you have clustering, like if you can have some ways where people get together and you have got tall structures, yes, vertical development, then the housing problems will be lesser. When you have got extensive land uses, then you have land shortages and you have problems of higher rentals also. So I'm linking the problems of the housing problems not just to migration. फिर आप आंसर लिख नहीं पाओगे. Okay, you have taken it to geography concepts now. अच्छा, आप मुझे एक regional देखो, one smart way of bringing geography is you discuss as regions. So ये housing problem India में क्या लगता है? Regional pattern होगा कि नहीं होगा? Which parts of India will have more of the housing problems? जहां पर higher urbanization है. एक तो all the primate cities will have problems of housing. Plus, जहां पर higher urbanization है, so Western India will have more problems, Southern India will have more problems. Agriculture belt में, where the population still is in the rural areas, it may not be as much. So bring some insights here. Yes, mega cities में ज़्यादा होगा, mention that to you. So एक pattern based भी होगा, because it says in the context of India. अच्छा, now, can you take up the city that you know? If you know Delhi, very fine. Otherwise, आपको जो पता है, you might know at least one of the mega city. आपको हैदराबाद पता है शायद, या चेन्नई पता है शायद. Okay, you know Bangalore may be better. You know probably okay Mumbai better, or you know Delhi better. Whatever you know. can you take up that city and give an approximate idea where in that city you have got more housing problems? At least if you are around Delhi, okay, Delhi mein to problems, at least you can mention Karol Bagh region, central Delhi areas, parts of the old Delhi. Yeah, you can talk about the areas which are settled on the border periphery parts of UP, Rajasthan, and the rest. So take up examples from your cities. या आपको जो सिटी पता है, there is a pattern, और वहां पर सारा दिखता होगा. You can see a class divide, you can see lack of, maybe amenities, you can see problems of ghettoism there. So these are those, content from which you will work. So आपको मैंने raw material दे दिया. Now look at this. Now let's talk about the structure of the answer. Read the question again. It says, overcrowding leads to chronic problem of shortages of housing in India. So this question is more of a statement. आपको एक statement दे दिया. Landform is the product of structure, process, stage. ऐसा statement दे दिया. Any statement you have, इसके 2-3 dimensions होते हैं. You must explain this. What does it mean? Okay. You must, talk about what are the patterns, if any. You must talk about what are the reasons. What are the reasons? कोई भी statement कई 4-5 dimensions होगा. Give examples. Or example को you can give as one important case study, 1 or 2 important case studies. ठीक है? And while discussing these, try bringing in whatever geographical concept you can bring in. जैसे कि while explaining in this question, I can use the migration law. While discussing patterns, I can talk about morphology of cities. While talking about pattern, I can give a regional pattern. While talking about reasons, I can talk about development concepts and inequalities. And jab conclusion mein aao, you can always talk about solutions. You can talk about programs. You can summarize. मैंने कल बताया था ना, जो applied questions होते हैं, take it towards solutions and programs. Can we at least right now name 2 or 3 urban development programs? Yes, you can't miss smart cities. You have got Atal program, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, urban development program. You can talk about the concept of a sustainable cities. We had something called as TOD model, clustering. So first what I did was, yes, Amrut, exactly. Atal program is the Amrut program, correct? And if you know something current affairs mein, we talk about sustainable cities, talking about energy efficient cities, green cities, housing as a part of human rights, equity issues. तो पहले मैंने क्या किया? I gave you some ideas कि think कैसे सोचा जाता है. Then you have a sense of what does a statement type of answer demand. Explain, there are patterns, there are reasons. Give examples, bring case studies wherever possible. But remember, आपका focus होना चाहिए housing पे. Don't write a generic answer on urban problems and urban solutions. बहुत specific housing वाला है. So now go back. Your structure, introduction. Introduction, इसको आप database रख सकते हो. Okay. So in India, और ये question India specific है. So talk about India. India has more than 30% of its population in the urban areas. It's 5 mega cities on average 8 to 12 million population each account for bulk of the urban population. These type of large cities and urban population concentration leads to a series of problems, including the problems of housing shortages. Make sense? कुछ data लिखा, कुछ facts लिखा. Don't go around absurd. All done here? Housing problems is one of, कुछ याद आ रहा है, multi-dimensional poverty. Housing problem is one of the elements of components of multi-dimensional poverty. Multi-dimensional poverty. So poverty is not simply about income aspects. Poverty includes housing, nutrition, education, drinking water issues, sanitation. Yes. So housing problem, urban areas में It's one of the dimensions of multi-dimensional poverty. So does the answer look like urbanization and housing issues now? Now you come towards a diagram. तो आप बताओ diagram कैसे होगा? What diagram will you have? And I'll suggest keep a schematic. Yes, if I draw the map of India, क्या करेंगे बताओ? आप cities दिखाओगे ना? और क्या कर सकते हो? The urban areas of India. अब सोचो ना, you're talking about a good diagram which must add value in your answer. तो बताओ क्या diagram बनाओगे? Fine, tell me what pie chart. देखो, it's impossible. एक समझो आप, it's impossible you can anticipate this question. Hindsight में बैठ के रिसर्च कर लिख लूंगा, ठीक है. आप एग्जाम हॉल में लिख रहे हो, आपको डाटा पता होगा कुछ इसके बारे में, आपको वही 4-5 डेटा ही पता होगा. तो फ्लो चार्ट में क्या रखोगे बताओ, स्कीमेटिक में क्या लिखोगे बताओ. रीजंस फॉर ओवरक्राउडिंग, will that be a good schematic, or reasons for housing problem is a good schematic? देखो, database pie charts definitely you should do it now. घर जाके देखो, बना लो, ताकि एक बार कम से कम कर लिया तो याद हो जाएगा. बट एग्जाम हॉल में इट्स वेरी अनलाइकली आपको याद आएगा. मोस्ट ऑफ देम डू दिस मिस्टेक. मैप ऑफ इंडिया बना दिया, दिल्ली, कलकत्ता, चेन्नई, बेंगलोर बना के छोड़ दिया. इसमें करना है क्या मुझे? इससे अच्छा पूरा बना देते, वर्ल्ड मैप बना लो, शो में न्यूयॉर्क भी कहां पर है, मेक्सिको भी कहां पर है. तो डायग्राम शुड ऐड वैल्यू टू योर आंसर. एंड आई सेड वन गुड सजेशन इज दैट डायग्राम ऐसा बनाओ कि अगर एग्जामिनर पूरा आंसर न भी पढ़े, द डायग्राम शुड हेल्प हिम कन्विंस कि यार ये इसको पता है यार. सो माय सजेशन इज, अनलेस अ मैप इज पॉसिबल, ड्रॉ स्कीमेटिक. तो यहां पर स्कीमेटिक होगा रीजंस फॉर अर्बन हाउसिंग शॉर्टेजेस. ओके, इसीलिए आपका मैंने वो मंथन करवाया. बताओ क्या क्या रीजन है. सो रीजंस फॉर अर्बन हाउसिंग शॉर्टेजेस. रीजंस आर माइग्रेशन बेस्ड. This is rural to urban migration. This is the low skilled population. Migration based can add ghettoism and slums they contribute to. But iska bigger reason hoga issues related to governance, land use planning, governance of rent issues and affordability, issues of deliberate exclusion. So this tells me you understand urban problem, housing problem, more than simply migration issues. Yes, you can, but you can keep it separately for a case study. जो बाजार based model है, the native town having the problem or the center, उसको रखो वाले case study. So case study, housing problem of Delhi. Okay, Delhi's problem because of the bazaar based development, जहां पर traditional bazaars हैं, like in the diagram have the problems, whereas the planned construction areas generally have less of housing problems. So keep the diagram for the detailing part. I was coming to that ultimately. So as a suggestion, जो diagram बनाओ या schematic बनाओ ना, उसको answer का एक type का snapshot रखो. That's the most convenient, and keep it very specific. This will be reasons of urban housing problems in India. Every part of the answer must be relevant to the question's demand. मैंने intro पढ़ा, diagram देखा, किसी को doubt नहीं होगा कि it's about housing problem of urban areas. You know, यही होगा, और कोई question possibly नहीं है why is drawing this diagram. Overcrowding leads to yes. So ये जो housing problems हैं, यही दो reasons जो हैं, this leads to overcrowding. At a superficial level, migration is more responsible for overcrowding, but this is more fundamental. You could have a box here and write down, okay, there's overcrowding reasons. So now the body itself. So housing problems are related to overcrowding in urban areas. Okay, but the overcrowding in turn is related to many other fundamental aspects. Overcrowding and housing, many other fundamental aspects related to migrations and governance issues. बना आंसर आपका? The housing problems are related to overcrowding in urban areas. So I agree with this sentence. यही आपका question था. But I'm saying is, ये जो housing overcrowding dimension है, this is related to many other fundamental aspects of migration and governance issues. ठीक है? So point number 1, migration leading to overcrowding and therefore housing shortages. देखो इसमें दो तीन लाइन. According to Ravenstein, ये आपका हेडिंग हो गया. जो बॉडी को ना हमेशा दो तीन सबहेड्स में डिवाइड करना. It makes the answer look smart. Okay. Heading is migration leading to overcrowding and therefore housing shortages. According to Ravenstein's theory, okay, at the lines here, India has predominance of rural to urban migration. Okay, so urban crowding, okay, leads to shortages of amenities, including housing, because most migrants are rural poor. Okay, therefore the housing problem manifests in the form of slums, squatters, unauthorized constructions. Housing problem manifests in the form of slums, squatters, unauthorized constructions in the cities. Example, mention 2-3 examples. I think most of us know about some urban area. So Delhi mein uthao 2-3 reason. Okay, areas jahan pa pockets hain. Parts of South Delhi, if you know about, okay, Okhla regions, okay, Central Delhi, Karol Bagh regions, parts related to Najafgarh, okay, bordering Gurgaon. यहाँ पे housing problems major हैं, shortages हैं. Dharavi in Mumbai, yes. If you know some more names, fine. Okay, examples हो गए आपका. अच्छा, now we'll go deeper. Overcrowding is not uniform, and therefore a housing problem has a pattern in urban cities. जो overcrowding problem वो uniform थोड़ी है, हर जगह होता है. Overcrowding is not uniform, and therefore the housing problem has a pattern in urban cities. यहाँ पर लिखोगे आप that there is distinct relationship of urban morphology in overcrowding and housing issues. In the analogy of okay, a concentric zonation model. In the analogy of concentric zonation model, bulk of the crowding is in the inner city zone, the transition zone, zone 1, low skilled laborers. So there is a social land use pattern. The outer cities with more affluent populations have lesser crowding compared to the inner cities. ठीक है? इसका best example है, you know, in parts of Mumbai. If you know Mumbai का जो traditional CBD है, that is the Colaba region, South Mumbai, Colaba, Nariman Point. उसके around there are 2-3 belts. एक area कहलाता है Parel, Lower Parel, an area called as Masjid. ये आपके सब दिखाई देगा stations में. They have the maximum crowding, and traditionally they have been mill centers. CBD of Mumbai is Nariman Point, Colaba, Kolaba, Colaba region. उसके around में ये belts हैं. The belts such as Lower Parel and Masjid region. High concentration of migrants and low skill workers. ये mills भी रहे हैं. They have housing problems. ठीक है? The third is okay, housing problems as a consequence of a rental issue. Okay, so governance related, high demand, low supply, a shrinking spaces, high demand, low supply, shrinking spaces have increased urban rentals. ये figure पता है, for middle class in the urban areas of India, housing is almost 30% of their monthly salary. That's a large number. Housing, health, education of children, that accounts for approximately 70% of what a man earns. Okay, that's why you're shrinking. You've got less amount of money which you can pay for a house. This is related to inflation, shrinking wages, related to non-regulation of rental prices. मुंबई में तो जो पगड़ी होता था ना, that advance, वो legendary रहा है. अब तो आप हर जगह देख, वहां पर पहले 6 months, 7 months का advance लेकर, that becomes difficult as a part of affording the housing. So governance issues. The fourth, crowding in urban areas also because of lack of urban economic integration with adjoining regions. ये भी heading बनेगा आपका. So lack of transportation, lack of public transport options. So metro, trams, buses are still unreliable. Crowding, urbanization because of lack of urban economic integration, okay, with the city regions. Lack of urban economic integration, and also physical integration with the city regions. Now you can talk about patterns. So within city, crowding and housing problems, patterns. Within city, crowding and housing problem patterns. So somewhere you can say the large cities may, there is an influence of colonial land use pattern. In the large cities, there is an influence of the colonial land use pattern. Now you can bring in the bazaar model here. Bazaar model. The planned extensions hain, they are relatively more open, boulevard, gardens, parks, cantonments hain, okay, but the native towns, the best example hoga Calcutta mein Howrah versus the rest of Calcutta. Howrah is packed. A distance of 5 kilometers can take you 1 hour sometimes. Old Delhi, Purani Delhi, is absolutely. So bazaar-based model where there is maximum crowding in the native regions, in the old city, So there is a colonial, basis also of why we have crowding. Okay, examples there aap Delhi ka example diya aapne. Chennai, whatever you think. Lucknow is a good example of that also. So all the planned extensions, jo bhi planned extensions hain, and the planned suburbs hain, they are Noida, planned suburbs. You have got Dwarka, planned suburbs, Vashi, Navi Mumbai, Salt Lake City, whatever city you know of, please write that. They will have lesser problems. Solutions. Usko hold karo solutions ke liye. ठीक है? So ये 5 point में body बन गया. Now move towards conclusions में solution. So a housing problem because of crowding can be managed. 2-3 broad heads. इसको भी आप डाल सकते हो as a diagram if you want to. You can put a diagram in this also. क्या solutions हैं? Solution number 1 will be managing rural-urban migration. Basically, planned development of the economy of the rural areas. ये route में hit करो आप. Then land acquisition by urban local bodies and expanding housing options. इसमें आ जाएगा okay, the reconstruction of slum areas, redevelopment of unauthorized areas, फिर rent control, rent management. Rent management का बहुत important reason also is black money, unaccounted money, black money, some governance issues, law and order have a rule, and इसके साथ में okay, that in India some of the solutions include TOD development, smart cities development, planned suburban expansion. So I've given you bulk of the structure and answer. अब आप इसको improvise करो. Wherever data, you can put some data, put some numbers, add something more. So you have introduction, you have a diagram, you have the 4-5 heads, solution, models mentioned. That's it. You struggle to keep in 2 pages. When you start off, okay, हर साल होता है. Start off, sir, क्या लिखें इसमें sir 2 page में? Wait, बताते हैं क्या लिखेंगे आप लोग. So once you have that, see the method required is you must know how to break the question and then converge with geographical concepts.